The covers of metal albums, just like in music in general, have served as the introduction to both the musical work and the band or group itself. In the realm of metal, these artistic works have transcended the category of mere ornaments to become true statements of intent, capturing the essence of the albums they represent. Through images that invoke Satanism, horror, mystery, violence, gore, or even the stark reality of the human condition, the covers of metal albums have played a crucial role in shaping the visual identity of heavy metal and its most extreme subgenres. These covers not only complement, but also reinforce the message and emotions conveyed through the lyrics and music. Today, we present 10 iconic metal album covers that have had a significant influence or are simply memorable for what they represent. Number 1. Despite the fact that the cover of Black Sabbath's Vol. 4 album has been imitated and parodied numerous times, the cover of their eponymous debut album from 1970 is one of the most mysterious. It features a woman named Louise, who has a witch-like appearance, standing in a field next to the historic Maple Durham water mill. The cover has a dark and mysterious aura that caused nightmares for young people of the time, like James Hetfield. According to British journalist Pete Sarfus, the woman died in a car accident that same year. However, this was not the case, as the photographer Keith McMillan revealed her identity a few years ago. Her name is Louisa Livingstone, and she was 18 years old when the photo was taken. Number 2. Scream Bloody Gore by Death is one of the earliest depictions of death metal in its purest form, not only because of its sound, but also for its cover art, which provides an authentic aesthetic of death, horror, and blood. In short, a visual work that defines this subgenre. Designed by the legendary artist Edward Repka, known for designing many metal album covers since the 1980s, the cover of this album depicts an infernal scene of death represented through 4 putrid zombies surrounded by skulls and human bones, dressed in robes, one of them sitting on what appears to be a kind of throne, as they toast and drink with blood. In the top left, the primitive logo of Death Spills Blood. Without a doubt, one of the most iconic and representative covers in the history of metal. Number 3. The legendary cover of Pantera's album, Vulgar Display of Power, has always been shrouded in intrigue, as it features a photo of a guy getting a violent punch in the face. For many years, there was a legend that this guy had to endure a number of punches to the face at $10 per hit until the perfect shot was achieved. Some even claim it reached 30, and that it had been Phil Anselmo, or even the drummer Vincent Paul Abbott, who fueled this myth, assured at the time that it was the record label, Atlantic, that found the man on the street and paid him to do it. However, the session's photographer Brad Geis revealed that it was not just any person, but the professional model Sean Cross from Los Angeles, who was a friend of his, stating it was a controlled situation and nobody was punched. Number 4. Despite the fact that the album cover for Venom's Welcome to Hell, created by Tony Bray Abaddon, is already iconic, featuring a pentagram and a fairly clear representation of Satan, it was the cover of Black Metal that most influenced the typical aesthetics of album covers and the style of black metal that would emerge years later. This was designed by Kronos in black and white, originally made with Tipex. It shows a demonic representation of Satan with huge and sharp horns as well as a pentagram on its forehead. And upon closer inspection, it has an inverted cross on the left horn and the number 666 on the right. In summary, the album cover is an effective visual representation of the music and attitude that would define a more extreme form of metal, but in a very primitive era, being quite ahead of its time. Number 5. Despite Judas Priest already being pioneers of heavy metal in the 1970s, it was British Steel, the album that showcased a significant advancement, which also features one of the most iconic covers that, despite being over 40 years old today, still bewilders. The cover, designed by Roslav Saibo, shows a hand amidst darkness which, with fingers spread, firmly holds a giant blade with such force that it seems to be slicing through flesh. The idea for the cover began when Rob Halford noticed of a razor blades that had the legend Sheffield Steel, referring to the Steel City, Sheffield. Upon hearing the idea, the band members thought, "This is as sharp as us." Ian Hill conceived it as a nod to the striking steelworkers of the time, representing their own British essence. Number 6. Being one of the most controversial covers of its time, the cover of Butchered at Birth by Cannibal Corpse, created by Vincent Locke, perfectly reflects the putrid, carnal, and depraved lyrics of this band. It portrays an even bloodier image than their first cover, which surprised the band members when they saw it for the first time. It depicts corpses of infants hanging from intestinus while two zombies disembowel and extract a premature newborn from a woman to add to their collection. This cover opened the door to many equally or even more brutal covers in the death metal scene over the years. According to Paul Mazurkiewicz, drummer and founding member of the band, there is none that surpasses the level of disgust that this one generates, due to the graphic and explicit nature of the artwork. Number 7. Choosing an Iron Maiden cover as the most iconic is not exactly an easy task. The band has several of the most representative covers in heavy metal. However, the cover of The Number of the Beast is a fairly reasonable choice. It shows Eddie manipulating a demon with strings like a puppeteer, but at the same time, the demon controls a much smaller Eddie dancing amidst the flames, enjoying seeing people burning. The cover was originally intended for the single Purgatory. However, the band's manager, Rod Smallwood, recommended not to waste it and to save it for their next album. Derek Riggs, the cover artist, has said that the illustration is based on one of his favorite comics, Doctor Strange, in which the protagonist could manipulate anyone as if they were a puppet. Number 8. The cold forests of Norway and corpse paint were the perfect combination to spawn the most iconic album covers of the second wave of black metal. Under a Funeral Moon by Darkthrone was no exception. In addition to featuring songs with the sound of black metal in its purest state, the album boasts a cover where the figure of Nocturno Culto emerges amidst the trees, with a fixed and chilling gaze emanating pure evil, while holding a large wooden stick topped with what appears to be a skull, as if he were an infernal sorcerer. The skull on top of his wooden stick is rumored to have been given to Mauricio Bullmetal of War Master Records, who published the infamous Mayhem bootleg, The Dawn of the Black Hearts. The band's logo blends into the branches, a design that became a role model for bands of later generations. Number 9. While the album cover of Melissa by Merciful Fate already illustrated pure evil, the cover of Don't Break the Oath from 1984 reinforces this idea, adding a horrific touch, Burning in Hell. Created by the great Swedish illustrator Thomas Holm, who has crafted numerous legendary metal album covers, he brought to life the demonic and malevolent figure that points a finger at the viewer while burning in infernal flames, perhaps insinuating, "You will be next." This illustration undoubtedly manages to project the intentions of the album, as just by looking at it, you will feel cursed by this imposing satanic figure, in addition to the captivating sensation of having the presence of demons and Satan surrounding you at all times. Number 10. If you're curious about what hell looks like, you just need to look at the cover of Rain and Blood by Slayer. Its illustrator, Larry Carroll, was immediately inspired just by listening to a cassette in which he was able to appreciate the lyrics that at the time touched on themes everyone wanted to avoid, understanding the provocation these would cause. It features deformed figures wandering about, among them the Pope, with a demonic goat presiding over the underworld. The band was initially not very enthusiastic upon seeing the deformed figures and doubted if it was what they wanted to express. However, the cover ultimately became the work with which we would associate some of the most important classics of thrash metal, such as Angel of Death and Raining Blood. Despite being criticized for its artistic style, it is worthy of framing as it represents one of the best and most brutal metal albums ever recorded.